Gonna clear my throat. Hang on. And we are live. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. I'm Catherine Gordon, the author of Sugar Freedom at sugarfreedom.com. And I overcame and continue one day at a time to deal with a struggle with food that's been a lifelong desire to eat more and more and more of certain kind of foods. And Sugar Freedom came out of my journey to find the foods that worked for me, which tend to be real foods. You either buy them at the farmer's market or the grocery store, and that I prepare at home. And so that's why today's blab is called Real Women on Real Food. And with me is my friend Maureen, who is one fit Wahine, who's also a real food fan. And Maureen, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over and let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Maureen Gary, and like Catherine said, I am also a person who's very interested in real food and living, I should look at the camera, and living a healthy lifestyle, especially as women over 40 and 50, really focused on having a really healthy lifestyle with real food, losing weight. I too have had my battles with weight throughout my life. Actually, I started very early and I lost weight in high school, but I did it in a very unhealthy way. So I became anemic. I became very, very tired, as you might imagine, with anemia. And things just didn't work out for me. And I thought, why am I so tired and I feel so horrible when I'm supposed to be so healthy, right? Because I didn't know how to lose weight right. So that led to me learning a lot about nutrition. I got an athletic training degree, got into training, and had a very long stint of being quite healthy. But then I moved into a different career, sat at the desk a lot, gained weight. After 50, decided I'm getting back into this and figuring out how to do this right. And it was so different versus when I had learned how a long, long time ago. So I'm back in the game as well, having lost the weight again and really wanting to help women who I understand now this phase of life is different. I mean, I did it when I was in my teens, and I did it when I was over 50, and things are different. So I'm just coming from your perspective as well.
So, Maureen, I'm going to jump in on an audio question. Do you happen to have a pair of earbuds that you can plug into your computer? I just had a little note that having a little difficulty hearing you. I mean, if not, I can hear you and we can continue on the way we are. But where is your microphone?
My microphone is on my camera.
Can you get a little closer? Then just come in. Yeah, exactly. Choke up on it a little bit.
I have my box of scrap paper in the way.
Maureen, that's already better. That's already better. So what I'm going to do is what I want to go ahead is open it up a little bit, and we'll see, we'll see if people jump in and want to hop on. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, Maureen, was this concept of building your personal food plan. And so I wanted to start with a couple of the foods that I eat all the time that always satisfy my hunger. One of the things that I notice is that, there's that old saying, you can't eat just one. So I want to find the foods that don't cause that effect in me. And for me, those tend to be, I'll start with breakfast. That's going to be pastured eggs, local if possible, any kind of above ground vegetable. I can eat uncured bacon and it doesn't, I just have a couple of pieces and I'm fine. But when I talk to people in my fitness studio and they're trying to find ways of eating that help them to release fat and do well, what I try to ask them is, what are the foods that you know that you like to eat that satisfy you? And what are some foods that come to mind for you, Maureen, that you like them, but they're always satisfying?
Well, I'm with you in the very high vegetable and good protein content. And so, if we're going to talk about breakfast, what I find always satisfies me, because I am hungry in the morning, because I try to give myself an overnight fast of at least 12 hours so that I get hungry in the morning. And I usually have a huge smoothie, which is a lot of greens, sometimes they're not even greens, but mostly I go with spinach and mixed greens, and sometimes I'll put in broccoli, which people think is very strange. I know personally, but it is bulky. So my trick is I add a ton of bulk of vegetables. I put protein powder in, and I put fat in there as well. So the fat varies. It could be avocado or coconut oil, coconut milk, or flax or chia, or any of those good fats, and ice and a little bit of fruit, because I do like to throw in blueberries or some other very colorful fruit, because I think that has so many nutrients that people say, I know that you allow a little fruit, but not a lot.
It depends.
I'm the same. I stay away from the sweeter ones.
I think for me, one of the things I try to do with fruit is you try to stay seasonal, because that's always what's going to taste the best. And also it's going to cost less. And then just for me, the only two that really don't work that well at all are going to be bananas and grapes. But I do agree. One of the things that I found that is, if you are adding the fruit either to a smoothie or to a meal, and you're not just like, chowing down on, necessarily a really big bowl of pineapple, that it just tends to work better if there's something that's in the mix with it, whether it's your avocado, or whether it's, your protein powder that you're putting in with it, or even what I find works beautifully for me is a couple of scrambled eggs and then a serving of cantaloupe in the morning. And you might have cottage cheese as well. And that fruit works really well for me if it's not on its own. And then the other—
That is perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect, because what you need, you found it, you're saying it exactly in a non-scientific way, right? Is that you have to have fat and protein to slow down the absorption. Because that's what buffers the absorption. Those take a lot longer. And when you mix the sweet in there, the simple sugars, which is what is sweet in fruit, which we all love, but that's what you have to slow down. So if you're having a banana and peanut butter, it's going to go into your system a lot slower than just the banana.
That's very true. But I do have to say, you brought them up. You brought up the banana and you brought up the peanut butter. I think one of the things that I've had to accept for myself, and that used to be just one of my absolute favorite snacks. But what I've found is that I have to be really careful about the brand of peanut butter that I use. And it has to be, a lot of companies are coming out with what they're calling these natural peanut butters. They're taking out some of the sugar and they're trying to use regular, less processed oils. But what I found is that if I'm going to eat peanut butter at all, it literally has to be just ground up peanuts. And one of the brands that I've used is, I think they call it Maranatha. And it's basically just a jar of ground up peanuts. And, but I think that, once again, this is a voyage of personal discovery, is that, the person standing next to me, banana and peanut butter, that might be like totally satisfying, and she could eat that and be full for 2 hours. Whereas if I ate the exact same banana and peanut butter, I'd be off to the races and looking for something else to eat. Let me ask you this question, Maureen, because this is what one of my students asked me this morning. We're getting ready to come off of a 6-week sugar freedom challenge where we've eliminated sugar and grains, and they've rocked it. They've done great. And we've done this for 6 weeks. And so my students are looking for a way to come in for a soft landing. And I want to open it up for them and tell them that they can eat some of the other foods that haven't been in there. What would be some of the things that, if you had a special evening, or you were going out to dinner, or you were making a special meal, what are some of the things that you might include that you might not eat every day?
So are you talking about that they have not had any carbohydrates at all?
That's not true. They've had fruit, they've had sweet potato, they've had potatoes, they've had, what carbs would they be having? Basically the only carbs that they've had would be fruit and vegetables, like potatoes and sweet potatoes that are higher in carb. What they haven't had is they haven't had rice. They really haven't had any bread, and they haven't, I think the thing that I'm looking for is, for you, what are those occasional foods that are good for you, but that you're not going to be eating every day?
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty simple. I usually, my occasional grain, I like rice. we just found some really good bread. I had a couple slices of bread the other day, which I usually don't have any bread, just because I know it's all, flour. It's ground down. It's much more available carbohydrates, like we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just avoid that. It's not that bread is evil, but I don't eat it because it's one of the things that I'd take out my rice, or I'd take out, some other thing that I prefer to have,
Right.
potato, sweet potato, something like that. But if I would say for their soft landing, I mean, are they craving things? Are they feeling
No, not at this point. I think what we're dealing with at this point, Maureen, is just straight up boredom.
Okay, so they want to have a good for them food that's just outside of what they've been eating for 6 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. I would definitely say if they love rice, just half a cup, with some other things and some kind of a oil along with it. It's the same moderation of the absorption of the carbs, because I know that's what they have accomplished now. You've taken them to the place where they are sugar. They're not burning sugar, right? They're burning fat.
Yeah. And
we want to keep that in the top.
Yes. We want to keep that going. And actually, one of the things that that I see, what do you feel? How do you feel about chocolate? Is chocolate in your menu? How do you deal with that?
Chocolate's always in my menu. But my chocolate is not the pre-made chocolate bar. My chocolate is cocoa powder. Because I find that I like chocolate flavor, but I like it spread out. I don't like it super like the one little square, stick it in my mouth and have that all be there it is.
That's true.
I like it mixed in with, like for example, this morning in my shake, I had my protein powder. I had some organic blackberries. Yeah, blackberries. And a whole ton of spinach. And then I threw in a couple of spoonfuls of cocoa powder. So I had like this chocolate berry shake, which was absolutely delicious.
Now, one of the ways that I incorporate chocolate is I make that avocado mousse. I think you might be familiar. The recipe's been all over the internet, and this is how I make it. It's a whole avocado. It's a quarter cup of cocoa powder. It's a quarter cup of either organic raw heavy cream, or if you want to keep it vegetarian vegan, you can use coconut milk instead. And then like a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then the way I make it sweet, two choices. Either I do use liquid stevia or stevia, however you want to pronounce it, or I do use xylitol. And I use the xylitol that's, the organic and that's made from the birch tree bark.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound delicious?
Yeah.
And it turns out fantastic. And I'm curious, I mean, do you use anything, a sweetener like a stevia or anything like that? Do you ever use that?
I do. My protein powder has stevia in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the other place I use it is because I'm a chocoholic. I love chocolate.
Right.
My kid would tell you. He was just joking about it with our Toastmasters group the other night. It's like, Mom is a chocolate addict, because this is my treat in the afternoon. When I want something sweet, I make either hot or cold, but I'll dissolve the cocoa powder in hot water, and then I'll add cold water and whole milk, so that I don't know how much whole milk I have, a third of a cup, half a cup, I don't really know. I put it in, and then I sweeten that with stevia, and so it's like chocolate milk or hot chocolate, and I get to drink a whole thing of it, so it lasts. I have that feeling of, that's what I was talking about spreading out. I just want to spread it out and savor it, right? And enjoy my chocolate for a while instead of having that little square disappear so fast.
Well,
but that's when I use it.
And now that you mentioned that, there's something that I want to bring up that's one of the secret weapons that I use, a real food secret weapon that I use all the time. And I like to go to Starbucks. I like to go sometimes just, for the social aspect. And sometimes I'll go either to read or get on my computer. And what I used to have is, I used to drink Frappuccinos. And oh my gosh, I can't even imagine dumping that much sugar into my body again. But what I do now is I'll go in, and sometimes I'll go caffeinated and sometimes I'll go decaf. But I'll have a grande or even a venti Americano iced. And of course, that's, just plain, espresso with water. And then pretty much
with milk, right?
Well, no, I have it with heavy cream. And generally, in most Starbucks, they're going to have it in the refrigerator. They're going to have a jug of it. And, I just tell them, how much to put in. And then I bring my chocolate raspberry stevia with me. And oh, I got to tell you that iced Americano, heavy cream, that raspberry chocolate stevia, I don't even miss it. And so one of the things I'm looking at now, I need to get on Amazon and see if they have it, is, see if I can find a way to approximate the pumpkin spice that's out there.
Oh,
yeah, and get that. Everybody wants that flavor now. So, if anybody knows, what
you're right.
Exactly.
She's like, tweet it out. That's so true.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, tell me, what is your sugar-free substitute for a pumpkin spice latte? And I think a lot of people would like to know what that is, something they can get in there.
That is a great idea, because those are sugar bombs. They're just horrible. Yeah. Horrible. So yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
I'll start cooking it. You cook it. Let's get the best recipe. Let's compare.
Get it out there. And it's get those substitutions with, either with stevia or xylitol or maybe erythritol, something that we can do so that we're, we're in the swim with everybody else who's enjoying all of their kind of stuff. So,
right.
So now you are in Hawaii, aren't you? Right now, we're starting to get just a little bit. We had some rain this weekend here in the California foothills, and the weather is starting to change and starting to turn. Do you find that at the turn of the season, is this a good time for you, for your fitness and your health goals? Do you find that you get recharged?
I love turning seasons. And unfortunately, when I moved to this part of Hawaii, it doesn't turn very much.
No.
It's really warm where I am right now. So it's barely cooling down. It's very hot still. I went swimming last night and it was like, oh, I'm so happy to be cooled up. So back to my California days. I know I used to live in the foothills. Yeah. You know that, right?
I do. I remember.
Oh, it was so hot and it was so cold in the winter. So I found I love in the fall to go for nice hikes.
Yeah.
But the challenge is, when you come back, you're all cold and you're really tired and you want something sweet, right? I always wanted it. Oh, it's time for whatever sweet thing. Let's have hot chocolate and banana bread or, pumpkin bread. Mm. And so I think probably with that challenge, it's great to get out and exercise, but I would definitely have a strategy about it, like the real high protein snack waiting for me, or take it with me on that hike. Because it's so invigorating, that fall air. I love that fall air.
One of the things that I'm noticing, that if we're talking about special foods that are really enjoyable, if you're out or as the holiday season comes in, I think for those of us who aren't eating conventional sweets and cakes and cookies, what I have found is that if I focus on the really high quality, unusual cheeses and pair them with fruits, that very often as we come into Thanksgiving and as we come into party season, one of the things that can be really helpful, whether these are things that you're preparing for yourself or whether you want to bring something to a party, where everybody else is probably going to be bringing their favorite dessert or their fanciest dessert, what we could do, if you're a cheese lover like me, is instead you could pick, some of the finest bries or some of the blue cheeses and then pair them with pears or apples or things like that and do that instead. And I think so often we have to use our imaginations and we have to get outside of that standard box. One of the things that I often confront with my students is when you get a little bit bored with the healthy foods. And what happens is very often, and you've said it yourself, you said you make sure to do a 12-hour fast over the evening so that you're waking up hungry in the morning and you actually want your breakfast. But one of the biggest challenges I have, Maureen, and that I see among my students and clients is sometimes it's lunchtime and man, oh man, you just don't want that salad. It's the last thing you want to eat. And if you have to look at another salad with, salmon or tuna in it, you're just going to go crazy. And one of the things that I've noticed works is if I can take grass-fed ground beef and just simply mix it with a can of salsa, cook that up and then use cabbage leaves as kind of like a taco shell and with a little avocado. Sometimes that rescues me. Do you have anything that you would think of now moving on to like lunch and dinner to help out people who are just, they're tired of, protein and vegetables? I mean, is there some way to mix that up?
Yeah. Last week or week before, I had a binge on this thing that I'll tell you about. It was so good. It was so good. And I made a huge amount. See, this is what I like to do is buy 2 big heads of cabbage and a lot of onions. And I'll pre-cook. I'll just cut them all together and cook it all up. And it's usually olive oil, but I could use coconut oil, either one. Have that in the fridge. And then I'll have some chicken breast also. And so then when it comes to what am I going to do with this? What I did, and it's so good, is you take a bunch of that cabbage onion mixture and put it in the pan, right? And chop a little chicken breast on it. Throw some coconut milk on it, whole coconut milk, right? Okay. In the pan, and curry powder and salt. It's absolutely delicious. So and if you're a vegan eater like I am, I put some garbanzos in there as well. So like half chicken, half garbanzos for protein. Oh, it's really, really good. I think I had that 3-4 times that week.
So you've got an Indian dish, in other words, it's a curry inspired.
Simple curry. Yeah, I mean, there's no preparation of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Once you do all the chop and you have it in the fridge, you don't look in the fridge and go, oh, lettuce leaves again. It's just, I have that same feeling. And I have warm weather. In the cool weather, I cannot eat cold stuff. I just don't do it. So that's one of the things that I know when the weather gets cooler, you have to have something warm.
Yeah.
For me anyway, but I find it's much more satisfying, and like right now I have a really good dish that I make a huge pot of squash soup, and it's the same thing. Cook in the pressure cooker, some kind of squash. I have kabocha, which is the local squash, but you can use butternut, which is great on the mainland, and onion, chop it all up, some garlic, put it in the pressure cooker and cook it till it's soft. Then throw in a can of coconut milk. Same thing. This is a flavor thing, a curry thing. Right. But it brought it to my mind.
That's fine.
And water enough to thin it out, and some salt. And did I say curry powder yet?
I think you did.
Okay, curry powder. And then the immersion blender. Yeah. And then you've got a big pot of soup, and that goes in the fridge as well. And so instantly, when you want this warm, satisfying meal, you've got this nice creamy bowl of soup that's made of this bright orange, full of nutrition vegetable, and coconut milk and some hot spices. The ginger and the turmeric are really good for you as well. So,
and as a matter of fact, I think that, and you can add to this if you want to, but I think there's a list of seasonings that just, you got to have these in your cabinet. And certainly number one for me would be a good sea salt. That's going to be a source of iodine as well. It's going to protect our good old thyroids. And so that's number one. And then for me, of course, have garlic on hand, but also an organic garlic powder. You got to have the turmeric. And I have probably 3 different kinds of curry, and then ginger, and and your red pepper. And I really do think that if you can just get between 5 and 10, it can make a really big difference. One of the things that really struck me when you were talking about the soup you were making is I live in a household with 2 people who have never had a weight problem. And I think, you have how many, 1 or 2 sons?
I have 2 boys.
Yeah. Teenagers. So for me, I don't know if this is the same for you. I don't really eat the same way that my son and my husband do. My menu is much more simple. So I usually am looking for, I'll make the protein for all of us, but then I'm looking for things that I can do as the side dishes to mix it up. And I think your soup sounds like a fantastic side dish that way. Yeah.
And my boys have to eat what I eat unless they want to make it themselves.
I agree.
That's the way I am.
I make it, and if they want something else, then very often they will say, "Oh my gosh, I just have to have sushi," so off they go, right?
So they'll go get it. Yeah. Well, my son will make pancakes and waffles and that kind of more sweetened or bready thing.
As a matter of fact, that's a really good suggestion. My son was in the mood for waffles the other day, and I think I need to just get a waffle iron in the mix and just teach him how to make it himself, and that'll definitely get him going on his cooking skills for the future.
Absolutely, but never let syrup in the house.
It's funny, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, because the truth is, that stuff is in the house. In
Ah,
my house, there's, I don't even want to tell you what's up high in the cupboards. And I'm going to be honest here today. It doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, I'll get into that stuff. And it's always really, really hard for me because I always regret it because the next morning I end up, I'm swollen, I'm achy. Um, but I think one of the things is I always have to forgive myself and just move on. And one of the things that I've noticed is when I have one of those horrible days, what I do the next morning, and I'll share that routine with you, is I get up and I make sure I have my tonic, which is the Bragg's apple cider vinegar, the lemon juice with plenty of water. And then I just make sure that I get right back on having that simple, full breakfast that's going to have protein and is going to have vegetables in it. And then I make sure that at lunch I do get that big salad. And so I do find, and I want to encourage, anybody who happens to hear this or anyone who's looking to create their food plan, is that I think we all need those foundational foods that they may not be the most exciting foods in the world, but they satisfy us, they nourish us, and they get us back on track. And then I'll share grapefruit tends to do that for me too. And so if you were in the same situation, I mean, if you were really trying to either feel your best, what would those kind of foods be that would be your go-to foods for coming back off of a bad day?
yeah. Okay. Bad day coming
Yeah.
off. I would definitely go, like you said, for the really high protein, high vegetable content stuff. Just stay away from the simple sugary, the grains and the fruits and things like that. For sure, because you already have a really fat burning metabolism. I mean, and you
Right.
can kick right back to it. So I would say
It'll come back.
next day,
Yeah.
back on track. In fact, it's so funny as you're saying this. I'm thinking right before we started talking, I was posting to my Facebook, my private Facebook group,
Right.
and saying, compartmentalize. Every 24 hours is the only thing you think about, right? And
I agree.
if you do everything you were planning to do today, you go to sleep going, "Yay, I did." If you didn't do everything you're planning today, you go to sleep going, "Tomorrow's another day." Either way, it's good. But it's only 24 hours, so you don't beat up on yourself. You just start again tomorrow. And it takes care of all that self-flagellation we're so good at, right? Like, oh, I failed.
It's
But no,
true. It's true.
24. It's one. It's just nothing.
As Scarlett O'Hara said,
Yeah.
tomorrow is another day.
It's another day.
So
Yeah.
we're coming up on the last couple of minutes of our broadcast. So what is coming up for you? I mean, today we're just finishing a 6-week challenge today, and so we've got a little bit of a breather before the holidays begin. What are you doing to get in the right mindset as we go into the holidays and as we go into quote unquote the eating season? I mean, do you have any advice for other real women like us that are going into this season where we're taking care of our families, we're going into social situations? What would you say?
I would say there's always plenty for everyone to eat, right? This is the way I approached it over many years, and I used to feel a little uncomfortable because I was always like you're the health nut,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just say, you guys, this is what makes me happy. It's just what makes me happy. So there's plenty of stuff for you to have here. I'm going to have, when we have literally the Super Bowl party, everybody's having their nachos and chips and stuff.
Yeah.
I separate the chips from the everything else, and I have carrots. And I say, it makes me happy to dip my carrots in the bean dip. So please don't bother me. And you take care of yourself is basically what I'm saying. Take care of yourself. Bring to the buffet what you want to eat, right? Make sure you are not stuck in a place where everyone's eating and you have nothing to eat, because that just feels horrible and it's really hard. So that's what I would say is like, find recipe books where you have the food that you like in there. Bring that. Make sure you always have that in the house. When people come over, serve that, right? Mm-hmm. And you might serve a couple things that you think might be extra, but do not say, what would my guests like to eat? And I'll just, chew on my finger.
Right.
Make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
We're old enough to do this, right? We can take care of ourselves now.
I certainly hope so. Wave that magic wand, we're the over 50 magic wand. And certainly there's one for 40 and 60 and there's probably one for over 20. But I do think that at a certain point, when it comes to what goes in your mouth, really, what could be more personal? And I think for all of us, one of the things we do need to do is stop constantly looking outside for the solution and look inside for the solution. Really, really take some time to get in touch with what are the foods that make you feel good, and go ahead and focus on those, and then maybe some other things on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and pause our